The desert wind had a voice of its own, a low, relentless whisper that wound through the cacti and dry brush like a memory unwilling to die. Thomas Ridley rolled up the cracked window of his aging Ford F-150 as it rattled down the long, sun-baked road leading to what locals only called the Orphan Ranch. There were no welcome signs, no markers, just a narrow dirt path that veered off Highway 94 and disappeared into the sandy horizon. A single laminated flyer sat in the passenger seat beside a half-empty bottle of water. In bold letters, it read, "Historic ranch property, sold as is, $1 to the right owner." And under that, the even more curious note, "Must stay for at least 30 days." Thomas, a 36-year-old single dad with tired eyes and calloused hands, hadn't thought twice. After losing his job in Denver, selling his house to pay off mounting debt, and watching his daughter slowly lose the light in her smile since her mother's passing, the idea of starting fresh somewhere, anywhere, had become more than a fantasy. It had become a necessity. And when he saw the ad while scrolling through listings at a public library in Albuquerque, something about it spoke to him. In the back seat, 10-year-old Lucy was curled against a pile of her favorite blankets and a half-melted chocolate bar, her headphones wrapped loosely around her neck. She glanced up as the truck jostled over a deep rut and stared at the growing silhouette ahead, a cluster of buildings framed by vast skies and rocky hills. "Is that it?" she asked, skeptical. "That's it," Thomas said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Home sweet dollar." As they crested the hill, the ranch came into full view. A two-story farmhouse stood proudly in the center, though its white paint was chipped and browned with dust. A detached barn leaned slightly to one side like a drunk relative, and a windmill squeaked out a song from a forgotten era. Surrounding the house were acres of land. Brittle, overgrown, and sun-scorched. Still, it was more than they had in months. It was theirs. Thomas parked in front of the house and stepped out, stretching his legs and shielding his eyes against the glare. Lucy followed, squinting up at the building. "It's big." "Big's good," Thomas said. "Big means possibility." They unloaded what little they owned from the truck, 2 duffel bags, a few boxes, a beat-up guitar case, and Lucy's sketchbooks. The front porch creaked ominously as they stepped on it, and Thomas fumbled with the old brass key sent by the real estate firm. It fit into the door with a reluctant turn, and the lock gave way with a groan like something waking from a long sleep. Inside, the air was stale with dust, aged wood, and hints of lavender that had long faded. The floorboards beneath their feet were solid, but groaned with every step. Sheets covered antique furniture like forgotten ghosts, and a chandelier dangled above, slightly tilted. In the corner of the living room sat an upright piano, its keys yellowed and silent. "Cool," Lucy whispered, wandering through the entryway. "It's like a haunted mansion." Thomas chuckled. "Let's hope not. But definitely old school." The next hour passed with a flurry of exploration. The kitchen was spacious but outdated, the pantry empty but still scented faintly of cloves. Upstairs, the hallway led to 4 bedrooms, 2 small, 1 master, and one that Lucy found herself inexplicably drawn to. At the very end of the hall was a door different from the others. While the other rooms had doorknobs with skeleton keyholes, this one had a flat brass plate with no visible lock or keyhole. The wood was darker, aged differently, as if it had stood longer than the house itself. It wasn't locked, but it didn't open either. No matter how much Lucy pushed, pulled, or leaned into it, the door wouldn't budge. "Dad," she called out, "this one's stuck." Thomas came up behind her, his hands still covered in dust. He inspected the door, tested the handle, then gave it a firm push. It didn't move. Not even a shiver. "Weird," he muttered. "Might be swollen shut from heat. I'll check it later." But later never came. That night, after setting up air mattresses and hanging a single battery-powered lantern from the ceiling, Thomas and Lucy ate canned ravioli on paper plates and listened to the chirps of crickets and distant coyotes. The stars outside were brilliant, millions of them spilling across the inky sky like glitter from a spilled jar. Lucy was already sketching the strange door by lantern light. "It's kind of spooky," she said. "I feel like someone's behind it." Thomas looked up from tuning his guitar and smirked. "Like a ghost?" "Or something else," she said, flipping to a clean page. "It feels sad." Thomas stared at her. Lucy had always been imaginative, sometimes eerily intuitive for her age. But her eyes now weren't playful. They were thoughtful. Somber. "Maybe it's just a closet," he offered gently. "Or maybe it was sealed off for a reason. Houses like this have secrets." Lucy nodded, though she didn't look convinced. "Yeah. But what if it's not the house keeping the secret? What if it's the person behind the door?" The days passed quickly, filled with chores, minor repairs, and moments of wonder. Thomas fixed up the barn enough to store their belongings. They discovered an overgrown greenhouse behind the house, full of brittle vines and shattered glass, and made plans to restore it. Lucy claimed the smallest room as her own and painted the ceiling with glow-in-the-dark stars. But always, that door at the end of the hall remained. Each morning, Lucy checked it. And each night, she swore she heard whispers on the other side. Sometimes laughter. Sometimes music. And once, crying. She never told her father. Not because she was scared, though she was, but because she felt something strange. A pull. Like the girl behind the door didn't mean harm. Like she was waiting. Then one morning, everything changed. It was the 12th day. Thomas had gone into town, a 40-minute drive, to pick up supplies. Lucy stayed behind with strict instructions: don't open the door for anyone, don't go near the well behind the barn, and keep her phone on. She promised. And then the storm rolled in. It came fast and violent, clouds swelling black across the horizon like bruises. The wind whipped up sand, slamming it against the windows like fists. Lucy, nervous but calm, closed every shutter and retreated to the living room with her sketchpad. Then the power flickered, despite the solar setup. Then the temperature dropped. And then, she heard footsteps upstairs. She froze. "Dad?" she called out, heart thudding. No answer. Gripping a flashlight, she crept up the staircase, each step creaking beneath her. The hallway was darker than normal. The door at the end? Wide open. Her heart stopped. Someone had opened it. She took one slow step, then another. The light beam trembled in her hand. She reached the doorway and peered inside. The room was clean. Pristine, almost. Not dusty. Not stale. As if someone had just left. The bed was made with a rose-patterned quilt. A porcelain doll sat on a window seat. And above the headboard, framed in glass, hung a painting of a girl. She looked just like Lucy. Same curls. Same eyes. Same sad expression. Lucy stepped inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, the wind died. The silence was complete. She approached the painting, drawn by something unspoken, and noticed a name scrawled on the bottom corner. Adeline, 1933. Suddenly, behind her, a soft voice whispered, "You found me." Lucy spun. Standing by the window was a girl in a pale dress. Her skin glowed faintly, translucent. Her hair fell in soft waves, and her eyes were full of longing. Lucy couldn't speak. The girl smiled faintly. "You opened the door." "I didn't," Lucy whispered. "Yes, you did. You saw me." When Thomas returned that evening, the storm had passed. He found Lucy on the front porch, sketchpad in her lap, drawing with furious strokes. "You okay, Luce?" She looked up. "I met her. Met who? The girl. In the room. Her name's Adeline. Thomas paused. What room? She pointed. The door at the end of the hall was open now. And Thomas suddenly remembered what the realtor had said when he signed the final papers. Don't worry about that room, she'd said, with a too cheerful laugh. It hasn't opened for decades.